of dunya, it's daru taghyir. It's always changing. It's never going to stay the same. You're healthy today, you might be sick tomorrow. You're wealthy today, you might be poor tomorrow. Don't get deluded. The Prophet ﷺ said, نِعْمَتَانِ مَغْبُونٌ فِيهِمَا كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ الصِّحَّةُ وَالْفَرَاغُ. Two blessings people are cheated out of because they think they're going to last forever. Health and leisure time. So when you've got leisure time, you don't use it. You don't study. You don't learn. You don't go out and help people. You waste your time, and then it's gone, and you're down here. You had it. You didn't use it for what it was for. وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الدَّارِ السَّلَامِ وَيَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ إِلَى الصِّرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Okay, so now God calls to the abode of peace. He just told us about the wheel of fortune. This is not for the believers. Where's Darus Salam? It's Jannah, right? But aren't there mubasharat of Jannah in dunya? Right? They're supposed to be, right? So what is Darus Salam here? Because the Muslims traditionally called the land of Islam Darus Salam, right? Jerusalem was Yerushalayim, right? Baghdad was called Madinatus Salam, the city of peace. Muslims are obsessed with peace. Historically, we were obsessed with peace. That was the whole point. Spread peace. Afshu salam bainakum. The Prophet said, spread peace. Our greeting is Assalamu alaikum. It's not Al-Harbu alaikum. Sayyidina Ali had a child, and he named it Harb, Al-Hasan. He went to the Prophet, he said, ماذا سميته؟ قال سميته حربا. قال بل اسمه حسن. He said, no, his name not war. His name's good, beauty. He came next time, had a child, سميته حربا. He went to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, what did you call him? He said, سميته حربا. He said, بل اسمه الحسين. He had a third child. He wanted a warrior. سميته حرب, because the Arabs, they call their sons the names for their enemies. This is Jahili. He was still thinking in the previous time. Because the Jahili Arabs, they named their sons names like, Nimr, Asad, Dhi'ib. Those were the names they used. Hamzala, bitter, Talha, big powerful tree. Because they were names for their enemies. Allah changed that. No, Abdurrahman, slave of peace. Abdullah, slave of God. Right? And so he came with a third son. He died, but he came with a third son. ماذا سميته حربا بل اسمه محسن. His name's Muhsin. Those are the names the Prophet wanted. Al-Hasan, beauty, spread good. Al-Hussein, he's second in line, so he's a little less than the first one, right? And then Muhsin. So, where is Darus Salam on the wheel? Come on, I just put it there. Yeah, so what is this? What do we call this? It's an axis. What else is it called? Huh? What? What's the center of a wheel? What do you call it? Those are spokes, or what comes out? It's a hub. Okay, so we'll call it a hub. Okay, so it's all good in the hub. Okay, this is the hub. We'll write it in Arabic, right? Hub. Right? You want to get into the hub, the hub, the love of Allah. The more you get to the center, the less affected you are by the vicissitudes of time. The more you center your being with God, the more these things become meaningless, because you see them as from God. Because God made a world that's very nature is to do this. This is the nature of the world. This is the nature of the world. You have to accept it. Just accept it. Let the wheel spin, but get into the eye of the hurricane. Get into the eye of the hurricane. The eye of the hurricane is complete tranquility, stillness. When ships go into the eye of the hurricane, there's no storm. It's all peaceful. They're in Darus Salam. And this is why أصلح الناس in Islam, أصلح الناس في قرن من القرون, the most righteous human being Because one of us is the best of us in this time. There is one Muslim who's better than all the other Muslims. Because he represents the heart of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet was the best of all human beings. The Prophet is the qutb of existence. He's qutb al-wujud. He's the axis of existence. That's why he's perfect stillness. He was never perturbed. He went to Ta'if, they spit on him, threw rocks at him, they made him bleed. Did he say, Allah anzil alayhim al-adhab? Did he say that? No, because he didn't see them as doing it to him. He saw them as a bala from God. And he said, إِلَى مَنْ تَكِلُونِي? Who are you going to send me to? إِلَى عَدُوٍ يَتَجَهَّمُنِي? Like to some enemy, right? Who doesn't know who I am? He said, if you're content with me, I'm fine with it. وَالْعَافِيَةُ أَوْسَعُ. But afiyah is better. It's nicer to be in good conditions than bad conditions. We don't have a victimization complex like some religions. They actually like to be punished, right? Muslims don't like that. We would rather be ruling than be ruled. We would rather be that. But if we're under the authority of somebody else, then we know who gave them the power. We're not deluded into thinking they did it themselves, because we know who controls the wheel of fortune. Allahumma malik al-mulk. You're the owner of the dominion. You give it to whom you please. Right? So this is where Ghazali was up here, and then at about 38 he was here, like, this doesn't look good for me. And then he loses his voice, and now he's here. The thing that put him here was taken away from him, and he finds himself here. He went into a state of depression. But then, da'Allah mukhlisin, he called on Allah with sincerity, and he started his journey where? Here. Into the center. And he becomes the qutb. And this is why none of it affected him at the end of his life. None of it affected him. He had no interest in power, jah. He said, I used to teach kasban lil jah. He said, now I teach how to get rid of jah. He said, I used to teach in order to get stature. Now I'm teaching to help people get rid of this love. Hubb ad-dunya. What's our disease? Hubb ad-dunya. Loving to be up here. Wa karahiyat, the struggle. Hating to be down here. This is our sickness, that we're trapped in this circle. And this is where Allah is telling us to get to. Be here, and none of it will matter. And then you can struggle, and your struggle will be meaningful. Because right now, you're down here, you're just struggling out of anger, out of love of vengeance, right? When Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, this is where he was working from. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi was working from the center. He didn't spend his youth throwing stones at crusaders. He didn't spend his youth throwing stones at crusaders. Who can tell me what he did as a young man? Huh? He was a student, and one of the books he studied was the Ihya. He was a fruit of the madrasa of Imam Abu Hamid. He was a Shafi'i scholar. He memorized the Quran. That's what he was doing in his youth. Even though the Crusaders were occupying Palestine, he knew, we don't have any power to do it. We can't get rid of these people now, so what should I use my time for? To learn the things that will help me. Not just free Al-Quds, but free the people who are oppressing the people in Al-Quds from their oppression. Unsuru akhakum ghaliman aw madhluma. Give help to your brother, even your Jewish brother, your Christian brother. Help them stop oppressing. That's how the Prophet said, we know how to help victims. How do you help the oppressor? He said, by stopping him from his oppression. At least remind him. At least tell him, you're oppressing. You shouldn't do this. Right? Because they kill the people that remind them. Allah says that in the Quran. Right? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Right? All Malcolm was doing, the tongue was all he had. He didn't have any army. And he started from hatred. That's where he was, and that's why if you listen to his early talks, they're just filled with hate. But listen to his last talk. Nobody wants to hear Malcolm after Mecca. They all want that harsh Malcolm. Yeah. They don't want to hear the Malcolm that suddenly realizes people are human beings. White people are human. A lot of them would almost convince you otherwise. I understand that. But they're human beings. Right? Turkish people are white. A lot of them. They don't behave like that sickness, right? Which some attribute to a lack of melatonin. You need more sun. The sun makes you happy, doesn't it? When the sun comes up. You live in Europe, there's never any sun, you're miserable. You get a bad attitude. But that's Malcolm. Malcolm got there. That's why in the end of his life, that's where he was. What's Martin Luther King said right before he dies? I've been to the mountain. Everybody wants longevity. I've been to the mountaintop. He was moving. That's where but he started. He understood this. Trust me, he knew this model very well. You know, one thing Martin Luther King said was, if I wasn't against violence on moral terms, for moral reasons, I'd still be against it for pragmatic reasons. That's what Muslims haven't learned that. I'm against modern violence on moral grounds. I really am. I am against modern warfare. I don't believe in modern warfare. I don't believe Muslims should be engaged in modern warfare. I really don't. I'd rather be killed than kill people with nuclear weapons. I'd rather die than drop a bomb. I really would. I'd rather die than blow up children. I'd much rather be killed than kill some innocent person. And the Prophet said towards the end of time, he said, be the best of the two sons of Adam, right? Kun, khayra ibn Adam, be like the best of what? It's Habil, right? Not Qabil. It's Abel, not Cain. You know, in the tafsir of Imam al-Baghawi, what he says? He says that Ibn Abbas said Cain was actually weaker than Abel. Abel could have defeated him, but he said their sharia was that they weren't even allowed self-defense. And that means, if that is true, that means that the foundation of our tradition is nonviolence. And I would argue that the Prophet would exhaust every nonviolent means before he would go to violent means. He would exhaust every nonviolent means. And that's why at Hudaybiyah, he had every right to fight those people, but he didn't. It was a nonviolent solution to a problem. The Muslims didn't like it. Why? Because Al-Yasir was being tortured. They were in chains. They're calling on them, help us. The Prophet said, Sabran ya Al-Yasir, inna maw'idukum al-jannah. There's a proof that the Prophet is seeing a Muslim tortured, and he's not doing anything about it. Outwardly. He saw a Muslim being tortured, and he didn't do anything about it outwardly. Because he was a profound strategic thinker. Completely different approach to the problems of the world. That's... What time is it? 9:35? 9:45? I'll give you one more example of the Wheel of Fortune, but you'll see it many times in the Quran. It's a very useful model, and I believe it is a Quranic model. And Allah is using that example of the mushrikeen. So they're the ones that are in this circle. The Muslims are supposed to be in the center. Right? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Those who believe and their hearts have stillness, طُمَأْنِينَ, from the dhikr of Allah. Isn't it by the dhikr of Allah the hearts are still? Why are they still? Because there's no movement in the hub. In the hub. There's no movement here. These people are not still. They're in complete confusion because it's just, this is their life. Right? This is their life. They're in that samsara of just this constantly turning wheel. And that's why Muslims are confused. They don't understand. Why aren't we on top? If we're the truth, why aren't we on top? Because that's not where the truth resides. It resides here. It doesn't reside here. This is where the truth resides. It's not to be on the top, it's to be in the center. And we've lost our